The diplomatic vessel moved through space like a white dove against the darkness. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge watching the screens as they approached New Shanghai Colony. It was supposed to be a routine supply run. The colony had 2 million people living there. Families, workers, children going to school, just regular people trying to make a life among the stars. "Captain, we're getting no response from traffic control," the communications officer said. Her voice carried a hint of worry. Marcus frowned. "Try again. Maybe their systems are down." They tried 5 more times. Nothing but silence answered them back. The colony's orbital stations hung in space like dead metal insects. Their lights were on, but nobody was home. "Sir, I'm reading life support active on the surface. All the buildings are powered up. But no communications at all," the sensor officer reported. Something cold crawled down Marcus's spine. "Take us down, landing site Alpha." The ship descended through the atmosphere. New Shanghai spread out below them, a city of gleaming towers and green parks. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. No traffic moving in the streets. No ships taking off or landing. Just stillness. They landed in the central spaceport. Marcus led a team down the ramp, weapons ready. The air was clean and breathable. Birds sang in the distance. But there were no people. They found the first bodies in the main plaza. Hundreds of them lying in neat rows. Men, women, children, all of them arranged carefully like someone had organized them. No signs of struggle. No damage to their clothes. They just looked like they were sleeping, except for the dark stains on the ground beneath them. Marcus felt his stomach twist. He had seen war before. He had seen people die. But this was different. This was organized, systematic. "Check every building," he ordered. "Find survivors." His team spread out through the city. Every hour the reports came back. More bodies. More neat rows. More families who would never wake up. The schools were the worst. Tiny bodies in classrooms still sitting at their desks. By nightfall, they knew the truth. Everyone was dead. All 2.3 million people. Not a single survivor. Marcus sent the emergency signal. Within 3 days, ships from the Galactic Council arrived. Investigators from a dozen different species walked through the silent streets. They took samples. They studied the bodies. They accessed the colony's computer systems. The evidence was clear. A Krell military ship had entered orbit 2 weeks ago. They had released a nerve agent into the atmosphere, something that killed quickly and painlessly but killed everyone. The Krell had even sent down teams afterward to arrange the bodies, to make it look organized and deliberate. Ambassador Sarah Chen arrived on the 10th day. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She walked through the streets of New Shanghai in silence. She stopped at a school playground where small bodies lay scattered like broken dolls. "Why?" she asked the lead investigator, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "The Krell claimed this sector was their ancestral territory," the investigator said. "They said humans were expanding too fast. They called this a warning." "A warning," Sarah repeated. Her voice was flat and cold. "They murdered 2 million people as a warning. The Council is very concerned, Ambassador." "We will take strong action." Sarah looked at him. "What kind of action?" "Economic sanctions. Trade restrictions. A formal censure. Perhaps they will lose some voting privileges for a few years. That's all." The investigator shifted uncomfortably. "The Krell are a powerful species, Ambassador. They have allies. We must consider the stability of the Council. We cannot risk a larger war." Sarah said nothing. She just stared at the dead children and felt something break inside her. The Galactic Council met 2 weeks later. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from 70 different species. The Krell ambassador was there, a massive reptilian creature with scales like armor and eyes like chips of ice. The council president, a floating jellyfish-like being, spoke in careful tones. "The council condemns the actions taken at New Shanghai. This was a violation of settled law. However, we must consider the broader political situation." The Krell ambassador rose. His voice was a deep rumble that filled the chamber. "My people apologize for any distress caused. However, the humans were warned repeatedly about their expansion. We took proportionate action to defend our territorial claims." "Proportionate?" Sarah stood up. Her voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "You murdered 2 million people, children, babies. You killed them all and you call it proportionate?" "Ambassador Chen, please contain yourself," the president said. We understand your emotions, but we must follow proper procedure. Procedure, Sarah said. The word tasted like poison. You're going to follow procedure while they get away with genocide. The debate went on for hours. Species after species stood up to speak. Some condemned the Krell strongly. Others talked about understanding different cultural perspectives. Many spoke about the need for stability and compromise. In the end, the council voted. Economic sanctions limited in scope, a formal censure that meant nothing. The Krell would pay a fine equivalent to what they spent on military fuel in a single day. Sarah sat in her chair and watched democracy fail. She watched justice die in committee. She watched 2 million deaths become a political inconvenience. After the vote, the Krell ambassador approached her. He loomed over her, massive and confident. I hope there are no hard feelings, Ambassador. Politics is complicated. I'm sure you understand. Sarah looked up at him. I understand perfectly. You killed our children. The council did nothing. And you think this is over? The Krell laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. What else could happen? Humans are civilized. You follow rules. You believe in law and order. That's why you'll never be truly powerful in this galaxy. Sarah smiled. It was not a warm smile. You're right about one thing. Humans are civilized. We follow rules. We believe in law and order. She leaned closer. But you just taught us that civilization is a choice. And we can always choose differently. She left the council chamber and returned to her ship. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Sarah wrote her report. She watched the video footage from New Shanghai over and over. She memorized the faces of the dead children. When she arrived on Earth, she went straight to the United Nations Assembly. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to hear her speak. The room was packed. Everyone knew something terrible had happened, but they didn't know what it meant yet. Sarah stood at the podium. She looked out at the faces watching her. The Galactic Council has failed us, she said. They killed our children and called it politics. They murdered 2 million people and gave them a fine. They've shown us that in this galaxy, civilization is a luxury only the strong can afford. She paused. The chamber was silent. We have a choice to make. We can accept this. We can be civilized and watch our people die whenever it's politically convenient for someone else. Or we can show this galaxy what humans really are underneath all the diplomacy and smiles. Her voice grew harder. They think we're weak because we choose peace. They think we're civilized because we can't be anything else. They're wrong. We're peaceful because we choose to be, and we can always choose differently. She looked directly at the cameras broadcasting her words to the world. They wanted to teach us a lesson about power. Very well, class is in session, and when humans stop being civilized, we become unforgettable. The vote came 3 days later. Humanity would withdraw from the Galactic Council, and they would make the Krell understand what they had done, not through law, not through politics, through something older, something that had kept humanity alive since the caves and the ice ages. They would make them understand through fear. The referendum happened on a Tuesday. People all across Earth went to vote. In cities and villages, in orbital stations and underwater habitats, humans made their choice. The question was simple. Should humanity withdraw from the Galactic Council and pursue justice for New Shanghai by any means necessary? The vote was 97% yes. Secretary General James Morrison stood before the cameras that would broadcast to every human colony across 47 star systems. He was an old man, his face lined with years of diplomacy and compromise, but his eyes were hard as stone. Today humanity has spoken, he said. For 50 years we played by their rules. We smiled and negotiated. We swallowed our pride and accepted insults. We did everything they asked because we wanted to be part of their civilized galaxy. He paused. They repaid us by murdering our children. And when we asked for justice, they gave us paperwork and politics. His voice grew louder. We are done asking. We are done begging. We tried their way. We wore their masks. We played their games. But they reminded us what we really are beneath the diplomatic smiles. We are survivors. We are warriors. And we do not forgive genocide. Across human space, military installations came to life. Bases that didn't exist on any official map suddenly appeared on sensors. In the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune, massive shipyards uncloaked. They had been hiding there for 30 years, disguised as asteroid mining operations. Ships began to emerge. Not the clean, pretty diplomatic vessels that humans showed the galaxy. These were different. Harsh angles and dark armor. Weapons that violated half a dozen Council treaties. Engines that burned hotter and faster than anything the Council thought humans possessed. Admiral Patricia Zhao stood in the command center of the hidden military station called Mjolnir. She was 60 years old with short gray hair and 3 scars across her left cheek from the Mars Rebellion. She looked at the star charts with satisfaction. "How many ships?" she asked. 300 fully operational, Admiral. Another 500 will be ready within 60 days, all equipped with the weapons from Project Fenrir. Project Fenrir. Weapons research that officially didn't exist. Humanity had signed treaties promising not to develop certain technologies, but they never promised to stop researching them. The scientists had been busy. "Good," Zhao said. "Begin Phase 1. Let's see if the Krell remember how to be afraid." On the Galactic Council homeworld, alien diplomats watched their screens with growing confusion. Human ships were moving. Not just a few. Hundreds of them. And they were all heading toward Krell space. The Hexathi ambassador, a creature that looked like a floating crystal, spoke to its military advisor. "I thought humans had only a small defense fleet. Where did all these ships come from?" "We don't know, Ambassador. They just appeared. Our intelligence completely missed this." "What are their intentions?" "Unknown. They're not responding to communications." The Krell Military Command Center erupted in activity. Alarms blared as sensors detected human ships entering their territory. But the humans weren't heading for military targets. They were heading for the colonies. General Krax, the Krell military commander, studied the tactical display. He was a veteran of a dozen wars. He knew strategy and tactics, but this made no sense. "They're splitting into small groups," his tactical officer reported. "Dozens of different targets. All civilian colonies, then destroy them. We have superior numbers. Sir, our fleets are concentrated around our military worlds. These colonies have minimal defense. By the time we redirect our forces, the humans will be there." Krax felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. What are they doing? He found out 3 hours later. The first human fleet arrived at the Krell colony of Draxis. Population 3 million. The human ships didn't attack immediately. Instead, they broadcast a message on every frequency. Admiral Zhao's face appeared on every screen. "People of Draxis, you probably don't know what your military did to us. Let me show you." Footage from New Shanghai played. Bodies in rows. Dead children in schools. Families that would never wake up. The entire massacre documented in brutal detail. "Your leaders did this," Zhao said. "They murdered 2 million of our people. And the Galactic Council did nothing. So we're here to teach a lesson about proportionate response." The Krell on Draxis watched in horror. Most of them had never heard about New Shanghai. Their government controlled the news. They had no idea what had been done in their name. "We're giving you 6 hours to evacuate to emergency shelters," Zhao continued. "We're not like your leaders. We won't murder civilians in their sleep, but we will destroy every military target, every government building, and every piece of infrastructure your people rely on." "You wanted to teach us about proportionate response." Class is in session. 6 hours later, kinetic missiles rained down on Draxis. Not on homes or schools. On military bases, communication centers, power plants, government offices. The colony was crippled, but the people lived. Zhao broadcast again. "Consider yourselves lucky. We could have done to you what you did to New Shanghai. But we're not animals. Remember that. Remember that humans showed mercy when your leaders showed none." The human fleet vanished into deep space before Krell military. Reinforcements arrived. The same scene played out. Across 8 Krell colonies in 3 days. Hit and run. Strike and vanish. The humans never stayed to fight a pitched battle. They appeared, delivered their message, destroyed infrastructure, and disappeared. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions every day. Ambassador after ambassador demanded humanity be stopped. But nobody knew how. Human fleets didn't follow predictable patterns. They didn't hold territory. They just struck and vanished into the dark between stars. A Vrelian counselor, a species that looked like upright wolves, stood to speak. "We must negotiate with the humans. Make them see reason." "We tried," the council president said. "They won't answer our communications." "Then we must use force. Sanction them. Blockade their worlds," an old counselor from the Yithian species laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Blockade Earth with what?" We just found out humans have 10 times the military we thought they had, and those are just the ships we can see. Who knows what else they're hiding? In a secure conference room on Mars, a different kind of meeting was taking place. 10 elderly humans sat around a table. The youngest was 90 years old. They were veterans of Earth's last major wars, conflicts fought before humanity reached the stars. General Chen Wei was 103 years old. He had fought in the Pacific Unification War 60 years ago. His hands shook with age, but his mind was sharp as a knife. "The young ones are doing well," he said in Mandarin. A translator converted his words to English, Spanish, Arabic, and Russian for the others at the table. "They're learning," agreed General Sarah Johnson, who had commanded forces in the African water wars. "But they're still thinking like council species. Too much honor, too much fairness. We should remind them how humans really fight when survival is at stake," said Colonel Dmitry Volkov. He had been a special forces operative in the Siberian collapse. No honor, no fairness. Just winning. They wrote a report together, tactics from Earth's brutal past, strategies that broke every rule of civilized warfare, ways to hurt an enemy so badly they would never recover. The report was delivered to Admiral Zhao. She read it in her quarters late at night. Some of it made her sick. But she understood. War wasn't about being noble. It was about making the other side stop. On the Krell homeworld, panic was spreading. 8 colonies had been hit. Infrastructure destroyed. Their military looked incompetent, unable to protect their own people. Worse, the humans had broadcast the truth about New Shanghai. Now every Krell citizen knew what their leaders had done. General Krax faced the Krell High Council. "We must escalate. Show strength. If we appear weak, other species will think they can attack us too." "What do you propose?" asked the Supreme Leader. "An ancient Krell covered in scars from 100 battles. We hit them back. Hard. Target their colonies just like they're targeting ours. That will only make them angrier. Let them be angry. We are Krell. We do not bow to inferior species." The Supreme Leader thought for a long moment. Pride warred with pragmatism. "Pride won, do it," he said. "Show these humans that we are not afraid." It was the worst decision he would ever make. Admiral Zhao received the intelligence report 4 hours before the Krell attack. Human spy networks had infiltrated deep into Krell command. She knew which colony they would target. A mining outpost called Prometheus Station. Population 8,000, she could warn them. Evacuate them. Save them all, she didn't. The Krell attack came exactly as predicted. Biological weapons banned by every council treaty. The same thing they had used on New Shanghai. 8,000 humans died, their bodies rotting before help could arrive. Zhao watched the footage and felt something inside her turn to ice. This was what she needed. This was the justification. She sent a message to every human fleet. Execute Protocol Ragnarok. No restraint, no mercy. The enemy has shown us what they are. Show them what we can be. Human ships appeared across 20 Krell military installations simultaneously. Not colonies this time. Military bases, shipyards, command centers. And this time the humans didn't use conventional weapons. They used the weapons from Project Fenrir, quantum torpedoes that phased through shields. They used the weapons from Project Fenrir, quantum torpedoes that phased through shields. Kinetic missiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. AI Guide Lieutenant Maria Santos sat in the cockpit of her stealth fighter, drifting silent in the darkness between stars. Her ship was no bigger than an old Earth bus, but it carried enough firepower to destroy a battleship. The hull was coated in material that absorbed sensor waves. To anyone looking, she was just empty space. She had been waiting for 3 days. No food except protein paste. No movement except small shifts to prevent muscle cramps. Her waste was recycled by the suit she wore. It was uncomfortable and boring and exactly what hunting required. Patience. Her sensors finally picked up the signature she was waiting for. A Krell supply convoy. 5 cargo ships protected by 2 destroyers. They thought they were safe, traveling through empty space far from any human activity. They were wrong. Maria keyed her communicator. The signal was tight beam, almost impossible to intercept. Ghost 7 to Ghost Leader. Target acquired. Copy that, 7. All units execute on my mark. Maria counted down in her head. 3, 2, 1. 40 human fighters decloaked simultaneously, surrounding the convoy. The Krell had maybe 2 seconds to realize what was happening before the missiles launched. The destroyers died first. their shields overwhelmed by quantum torpedoes that simply appeared inside their hulls. The cargo ships tried to run. None of them made it. Maria watched the expanding debris field and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just another job done. Another message sent. Travel in Krell space wasn't safe anymore. Nowhere was safe. Good kill, Ghost Squadron. Return to base. The fighters vanished back into stealth and scattered. By the time Krell military arrived to investigate, they found only wreckage and a broadcasting beacon. The human message was simple. A video showing the dead of New Shanghai and underneath text in the Krell language. You started this. We'll finish it. This was happening all across Krell space. Small human units striking from nowhere and vanishing like ghosts. Supply lines were cut. Communication relays destroyed. Mining operations sabotaged. The Krell military couldn't protect everything at once, and humans were everywhere and nowhere. On the Krell homeworld, Supreme Leader Thraxus called another emergency meeting. His advisors gathered, all of them looking tired and afraid. The war had been going on for 3 months and they were losing. How many attacks today? Thraxus demanded. 14 confirmed, Supreme Leader. Maybe more that we haven't discovered yet. They hit 3 supply depots, 2 communication stations, a mining colony, and 8 military patrols. And our casualties? 4,000 soldiers. The mining colony was evacuated, but the infrastructure is destroyed. We're losing the ability to produce war materials. Thraxus slammed his fist on the table. How is this possible? We are Krell. We have the largest military in this sector. How are these humans defeating us? His intelligence chief, General Vross, spoke carefully. They're not fighting like a military supreme leader. They're fighting like terrorists. Like guerrillas. They strike weak targets and avoid our strength. They're not trying to conquer territory. They're trying to bleed us dry. Then we increase patrols. We defend everything. We've tried. We don't have enough ships. Our military was designed to fight large fleet battles, not to guard thousands of locations against small, fast raiders. Another advisor spoke up. Supreme Leader, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans might accept— No, Thraxus roared. We do not negotiate with inferiors. We will crush them utterly. But privately, Thraxus was beginning to doubt. The humans weren't fighting like inferiors. They were fighting like something much more dangerous. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency session number 47 was underway. Representatives from 70 species shouted at each other, trying to be heard over the chaos. The humans must be stopped, demanded the Krell ambassador. They're committing war crimes. Attacking civilian targets, like you did at New Shanghai? The question came from the Vrelian ambassador. You started this war, Krell. You wanted to teach them about power. Congratulations, they learned. This is different. They're using illegal weapons. They're violating every treaty. Which you did first, pointed out the Hexathi ambassador. You used biological weapons on Prometheus Station. The humans only started using their advanced weapons after that. The council president tried to restore order. Please, everyone. We need to find a solution. This war is destabilizing the entire sector. Then make the humans stop, the Krell ambassador demanded. How? The president's frustration showed. They've left the council. They don't answer our communications. We can't negotiate with someone who won't talk to us. What the council didn't know was that humans were listening to every word. Human intelligence had infiltrated council systems months ago. In a secure facility on Titan, analysts translated and studied every council communication. Director James Park read the transcripts and smiled grimly. They're scared, good. Fear is the first step to respect. Should we respond to their negotiation attempts? Asked his deputy. Not yet. They need to be more desperate. Right now, they still think they can control this situation. They need to realize they can't. Back in Krell space, something new was happening. Krell citizens were beginning to question their government. Videos from New Shanghai, broadcast by human forces, had spread throughout Krell networks. Despite government attempts to suppress them, people were seeing the truth. On the colony world of Raktos, a crowd gathered in the central plaza. They were protesting, something rare in Krell society. A young Krell named Zena stood on a platform speaking to the crowd. They told us the humans were invading our territory. They told us this was a defensive action. They lied. Her voice carried across the plaza. Our leaders murdered millions of human civilians. They started a war they can't win. And now our children are dying for their pride. The crowd roared agreement. Similar protests were happening on a dozen Krell worlds. The government was losing control of its own people. Thraxus watched the protests on his screens and felt panic rising. Arrest them. All of them. Make examples. Supreme Leader, if we arrest them, it will only cause more protests. Our people are afraid. They see human attacks every day. They want this war to end. Then we give them victory. Prepare the fleet. All of it. Every ship we have. We'll strike at Earth itself. Once we destroy their homeworld, they'll have no choice but to surrender. General Krax looked horrified. Supreme Leader, that's suicide. Earth's defenses are, I don't care. Assemble the fleet. We attack in 1 week. What Thraxus didn't know was that human intelligence was already aware of his plan. The spy network had infiltrated so deeply that they knew the attack was coming before some Krell commanders did. Admiral Zhao received the intelligence and immediately began preparations. But she didn't prepare Earth's defenses. She prepared something else. Let them come, she told her command staff. Let them commit everything to one attack, and while they're gone, we'll take something they can't afford to lose. The Krell fleet assembled. 2,000 ships, the largest military force in their history. It was impressive, intimidating, designed to terrify any enemy. Supreme Leader Thraxus watched from his command ship and felt confidence return. This was Krell power. This was how war should be fought. Big fleets, honorable combat. Not the guerrilla tactics the humans had been using. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for Earth. The journey would take 3 days. They never made it. Human ships appeared from every direction. Not hundreds, thousands. Every ship humanity possessed, all converging on the Krell fleet. But these weren't attacks. These were shepherds, herding the Krell fleet away from Earth and into deep space, into a region with no habitable systems, no resources, just empty darkness. The Krell tried to fight through, but human weapons cut through their formations. Quantum torpedoes, relativistic missiles, AI swarms. The Krell had numbers, but humans had technology they'd been developing for decades. And while the Krell fleet was trapped in deep space, far from home, human forces struck the Krell homeworld itself. They didn't attack cities. They didn't kill civilians. Instead, they hit every military installation, every government building, every communication hub. In 6 hours, the Krell government effectively ceased to exist. Zhao broadcast directly to the Krell people. Your leaders started this war. Your leaders murdered our children. Your leaders sent your fleet to attack our homeworld. And now your leaders are gone. Your military command is destroyed. Your government has fallen. You have a choice. Surrender and help us bring the war criminals to justice, or continue fighting and watch your civilization burn. On Vraktos, Xena and other protest leaders seized the opportunity. They declared a provisional government, one that wanted peace. On other worlds, similar movements took control. The Krell people were tired of war. They were tired of dying for their leader's pride. In deep space, Supreme Leader Thraxus watched his homeworld fall and realized he had lost everything. His fleet was scattered. His government was gone. His people had turned against him. Retreat, he ordered quietly. All ships retreat to safe zones, but there were no safe zones. Human ships followed them everywhere. The great Krell fleet, once 2,000 strong, was picked apart over the following weeks. Captain Jennifer Park stood on the bridge of her destroyer, the Righteous Fire, watching the Krell civilian transport drift slowly across her viewscreen. Intelligence said the ship was carrying refugees from one of the civil war zones. Families fleeing the fighting. Children. Intelligence also said there were weapons in the cargo hold. Supplies being smuggled to the Krell hardliners who refused to surrender. Ammunition. Explosives. Equipment that would keep the civil war going. Weapons lock acquired. Captain, her tactical officer reported. Target is in range. Jennifer stared at the transport. She had her orders. Any ship carrying military supplies was a legitimate target. War didn't stop because there were civilians nearby. The enemy used them as shields. That's what her commander said. But she kept thinking about New Shanghai. Dead children in classrooms. Was humanity becoming the same thing it was fighting against? Captain, orders? Jennifer made her decision. Stand down weapons. Open a communication channel. Captain, the orders. I know the orders, Lieutenant. Open the channel. The Krell captain appeared on screen. He looked old and tired. Human vessel, please. We're carrying refugees. Women and children. Don't fire. I'm aware of your cargo manifest, Captain. I'm also aware you're carrying weapons. The Krell captain's face fell. He knew he was caught. Please. The weapons are in a sealed container. The refugees don't even know they're there. If you destroy us, you'll kill 300 innocents. Then jettison the weapons container. Do it now and you can proceed. The Krell captain looked shocked. You'll let us go? Jettison the weapons now. 5 minutes later, the container was floating in space. Jennifer had her crew retrieve it and destroy it. The transport continued on its way. Her second-in-command approached her quietly. Captain, command is not going to like this. We had orders to destroy any ship carrying military supplies. I'm aware. Log it in the report. My decision, my responsibility. 2 days later, Jennifer was arrested. Court-martial proceedings began within a week. She stood in a military tribunal on Mars facing 3 senior officers. The charges were read: disobeying direct orders during wartime, allowing enemy supplies to potentially reach combatants, failure to execute mission objectives. The prosecutor, a major with cold eyes, laid out the case. Captain Park knowingly allowed a vessel carrying enemy military supplies to escape. Her decision potentially cost human lives. In war, there is no room for sentiment. Orders must be followed. Jennifer's defense attorney stood. Captain Park prevented the deaths of 300 civilians, including 70 children. She still accomplished the mission objective by destroying the weapons. No military supplies reached the enemy. She violated orders. In war, that cannot be tolerated. The trial lasted 3 days. News broadcasts covered it across human space. It became more than just a trial. It became a question. What kind of people were humans becoming? On Earth, protests formed. Some demanded Jennifer be punished. We're at war. Orders are orders. Others demanded she be freed. We're fighting monsters. We can't become monsters ourselves. In the courtroom, Jennifer finally spoke in her own defense. I joined the military to protect humanity, not to murder children. Yes, those were Krell children. Yes, their people started this war. But they didn't. They were just kids, scared and running from violence. She looked at the judges. We're winning this war. Everyone knows it. The Krell are broken. Their government is gone. We've proven our point. But what happens when the war is over? What kind of people will we be? If we kill without discrimination, if we ignore the difference between soldiers and civilians, then what did we win? We'll just be the next Krell, teaching the next victim that civilization doesn't matter. The prosecutor stood. Emotional appeals don't change military law, Captain. No, they don't. I broke the rules. I'm guilty, but I'd do it again. Because if following orders means killing children, then the orders are wrong. The judges deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the head judge, a gray-haired admiral named Chen, spoke carefully. Captain Park, this tribunal finds you guilty of disobeying orders during wartime. Jennifer stood straight, ready for her punishment. However, in light of the circumstances and considering that no military advantage was gained by the enemy, we are suspending your sentence. You'll be placed on probation and restricted to non-combat duties. Jennifer felt relief flood through her. Admiral Chen continued. Captain, you posed a question to this court. What kind of people are we becoming? It's a question we should all be asking. We're fighting to prove that humanity deserves respect in this galaxy, but respect built only on fear is temporary. True respect comes from showing strength and restraint. You showed restraint. The tribunal believes that matters. Then Chen did something unexpected. He looked directly at the cameras broadcasting the trial. Let me be clear. We are at war. We will continue to prosecute this war until the Krell leadership faces justice. But we must never forget the line between necessary violence and cruelty. We must remain human, even when humanity is tested. Captain Park reminded us of that line. This war must end or it will end us. The trial became a turning point. Across human space, people began asking the same questions. How far was too far? When did justice become revenge? In a secure facility on Europa, a very different meeting was taking place. Human intelligence officers sat around a table, reviewing data from deep inside Krell space. Director Park looked at the information with growing interest. Tell me again what you found. Agent Miller, who had spent 3 years undercover on the Krell homeworld, explained. I infiltrated their military archives. The new Shanghai Genocide wasn't approved by the entire Krell government. It was a decision made by a small faction. The supreme leader, General Krax, and about 12 others. The rest of their government didn't even know until after it happened. Can you prove that? Yes, I have the communication records. Meeting minutes, everything. Miller put a data chip on the table. Most Krell leaders didn't want this war. They were horrified by what happened. But once it started, they couldn't stop it without looking weak. Director Park picked up the chip. This changes things. How so? Because it means the entire Krell species isn't our enemy. Just the leadership that ordered the genocide. If we can prove that, if we can show the galaxy that we're only after the guilty parties, then we're not just warriors. We're prosecutors. We're justice. The information was verified and prepared for public release. A week later, Admiral Zhao broadcast a message that went to every Krell world and every council species. For 4 months, humanity has been at war with the Krell hierarchy. We've struck hard. We've caused damage and death. We did this because they murdered 2 million of our people. And the galaxy did nothing. Images appeared showing the communications between the Krell leaders who planned New Shanghai. But we've learned something important. The genocide was ordered by 14 Krell leaders, not by their entire species. Billions of Krell citizens never wanted this war. They were lied to by their leadership just like we were abandoned by the council. Zhao's face hardened. We're making a new offer. To every Krell citizen, to every Krell soldier, we don't want to destroy your civilization. We want justice. We want the 14 individuals who planned and executed the New Shanghai genocide. Help us bring them to justice and this war ends. Protect them and we'll continue until there's nothing left to protect. The message included all the evidence, names, faces, communication records, proof that Supreme Leader Thraxus and his inner circle were responsible. On the Krell homeworld, the civil war was still raging. Reformers who wanted peace fought against hardliners who wanted to continue the war. But now the reformers had something powerful. Proof. Evidence that their own leaders had lied to them, started an unwinnable war, and brought their civilization to the edge of destruction. The tide turned. Krell citizens saw the truth and were furious, not at humans, at their own leaders who had betrayed them. Military units began switching sides. Governors who had supported the hardliners suddenly declared for the reformers. General Vross, who had served under Thraxus but secretly hated the war, made his move. He led a coalition of military units and surrounded the hardliner strongholds. The fighting was brief but intense. When it ended, the reformers controlled the government. Vross broadcast to Zhao, "Admiral, this is General Vross of the Krell Provisional Authority. We're prepared to surrender. We'll turn over the war criminals you seek. All we ask is that you allow us to rebuild our civilization in peace." Zhao considered. "General, humanity will accept your surrender under the following conditions. The 14 leaders who planned the New Shanghai genocide will be turned over for trial. Krell military forces will be reduced by 70%. Your government will pay reparations to the families of New Shanghai victims, and you'll submit to council monitoring for 20 years. We accept all conditions." "Good. Prepare the prisoners for transfer." 2 days later, Supreme Leader Thraxus and 13 other senior Krell officials were handed over to human custody. They were transported to neutral space where the trial would be held. The trial location was carefully chosen. An old council station, refurbished specifically for this purpose. Not human territory, not Krell space, neutral ground where the entire galaxy could watch. The International Criminal Court, relocated from Earth, would hear the executions were broadcast across the galaxy. 14 Krell leaders standing before firing squads, quick, professional, final. No speeches, no drama, just justice delivered with cold efficiency. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives watched in silence. Some species found it barbaric. Others found it appropriate. But everyone understood the message. Humanity had proven something fundamental. They could be pushed to peace but never to submission. And those who attacked them would pay the price. Ambassador Sarah Chen returned to the council 6 months after the executions. The war was over. The Krell Provisional Authority had signed peace treaties. Reparations were being paid. The galaxy was slowly returning to normal. But nothing was really normal anymore. Sarah walked through the council chamber doors. She wore simple black clothes, not the elaborate diplomatic robes most ambassadors favored. Her hair was grayer than before. Her eyes were harder. She looked like someone who had seen too much death and learned to live with it. The chamber fell silent as she took her seat. The human section had been empty for nearly a year. Now humanity was back. But everyone knew it was different. The council president, a new one elected after the previous one resigned in disgrace, addressed the assembly. We welcome the human delegation back to the council. Much has happened during your absence. We hope we can move forward in a spirit of cooperation and peace. Sarah stood to respond. Her voice carried across the chamber without needing amplification. Thank you, President. Humanity appreciates the welcome. But let's be clear about something. We're not back because we forgive what happened. We're back because our business here isn't finished. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various ambassadors. 2 million humans died on New Shanghai. The Galactic Council did nothing. Worse than nothing. You debated. You compromised. You treated genocide like a budget dispute. You showed us that in this council, justice is negotiable. The Krell ambassador, a reformist named Venna, stood. Ambassador Chen, the new Krell government deeply regrets what happened. We've paid reparations. We've accepted restrictions. What more can we do? Sarah's expression softened slightly. Ambassador Venna, you and your people are not my targets. You overthrew the monsters who ruled you. You helped deliver justice. The new Krell government has shown courage and integrity. Humanity respects that. She turned her attention to the rest of the council. But the system that failed us is still here. The same council that did nothing when we were attacked. The same political calculations that value stability over justice. That needs to change. A Hexathi ambassador spoke up. What are you proposing, Ambassador? Reform. Real reform. The council needs enforcement mechanisms that actually work. When genocide happens, there must be automatic consequences. Not debates. Not committees. Action. If the council had responded properly to New Shanghai, millions of lives on both sides would have been saved. The Vrelian ambassador, an old wolf-like creature named Karo, sparked a laugh. You want to give the council teeth? That's rich coming from the species that just spent a year ignoring us. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. No, Ambassador Karos, we don't want to give the council teeth. We'll be the teeth. Humanity is proposing a new role. We'll be the enforcement arm for crimes against sentient beings. When genocide happens, when species are attacked without justification, humanity will respond. Not for conquest. Not for power. For justice, the chamber erupted in noise. Ambassadors shouting objections and questions. The president called for order. When the noise died down, Karo spoke again. You want to be the galaxy's police? What makes you qualified? We're not qualified, Sarah said simply. We're just willing. Every species in this chamber saw what happened at New Shanghai. Every one of you knew it was wrong. But you did nothing because it was politically inconvenient. We did something. We proved that actions have consequences. That's not because we're better than you. It's because we were the victims, and victims either accept their fate or they change the rules. And if we refuse your proposal, Sarah shrugged, then refuse. Humanity doesn't need council approval. We'll do what we think is right regardless, but it would be better if we had a framework, rules, oversight. Make this official instead of having us act unilaterally every time someone commits atrocities. The debate continued for weeks. Some species supported the human proposal. Others opposed it strongly. But slowly a compromise emerged. Humanity would become part of a new council security force along with 3 other species. They would have authority to intervene in cases of genocide or major atrocities, but with oversight from the full council. It wasn't perfect. But it was better than nothing. On Earth, people had mixed feelings. Some celebrated. We made the galaxy safer. Others worried. We've become the thing we feared. Warriors. Enforcers. Secretary General Morrison addressed the concerns in a speech broadcast across human space. Yes, we've changed. War changes everyone. But we chose how we changed. We could have become conquerors. We had the power. We had the justification. Instead, we became prosecutors. We delivered justice and stopped. That matters, he paused. Are we still the same peaceful species that joined the council 50 years ago? No, we've learned that peace is a luxury, not a right. But we haven't become monsters. We've become survivors who protect others. I can live with that. On the Krell homeworld, General Vross now led the Provisional Authority. His government faced enormous challenges. The war had devastated the economy. Infrastructure was damaged. Trust was broken. But slowly, carefully, they were rebuilding. Vross met with a human diplomatic team to discuss the ongoing reparations. The meeting was tense but professional. At the end, Vross asked a question that had been troubling him. Why didn't you destroy us? You had the power. After what we did, no one would have blamed you for wiping out our entire species. The human diplomat, a woman named Ambassador Lisa Tran, considered her answer carefully. Because genocide in response to genocide doesn't make anything better. It just makes more dead people. We wanted justice, not extinction. There's a difference, but many of your people must have wanted revenge. Oh, they did. There were protests demanding we glass your homeworld, turn your planets into radioactive waste. But our leaders understood something important. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it doesn't solve anything. Justice is harder. It requires restraint, but it's the only way to actually build something better. Vross was quiet for a moment. We have a saying in Krell. Strength is knowing when not to use your teeth. I never understood it until now. Humanity showed strength by choosing justice over vengeance. We showed strength by proving we could win and still maintain our principles. That's the line. That's what separates civilization from barbarism. 5 years passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Humanity maintained a large military but no longer hid it. Human ships patrolled trade routes protecting against pirates and raiders. The Council Security Force intervened in 2 attempted genocides, stopping them before they could escalate. On New Shanghai, the colony had been rebuilt. New people lived in the homes of the dead. Children played in parks where bodies once lay in rows. Life continued because that's what life does. The memorial stood in the center of the main city. A massive black stone wall with 2 million names. People visited every day. Some left flowers. Some just stood and remembered. Sarah Chen returned to New Shanghai on the 10th anniversary of the massacre. She was older now, retirement approaching. She walked slowly through the memorial, reading names she had memorized years ago. A young reporter approached her. Ambassador Chen, can I ask you some questions for an anniversary piece? I suppose. Looking back, do you think humanity did the right thing? The war, the deaths, all of it? Sarah looked at the wall of names. I think we did the necessary thing. We proved that killing humans has consequences. We established that genocide won't be tolerated. Whether it was right? She trailed off. What do you tell yourself when you doubt? I tell myself that 2 million people died here. They died because someone thought humans were weak. They thought we would accept it, file a complaint, and move on. They were wrong. And because they were wrong, because we proved strength and enforced consequences, maybe the next species that thinks about genocide will remember what happened to the Krell and choose differently. Did we lose something in the process? Did we lose our humanity? Sarah smiled sadly. We lost our innocence. We can never again pretend the galaxy is a safe place where civilization protects the weak. But we didn't lose our humanity. We adapted it. We proved you can be moral and strong. You can demand justice and show mercy. You can fight wars and maintain principles. It's not easy, but it's possible. The reporter asked one final question. If you could go back and change anything, would you? Sarah thought for a long time. I would save New Shanghai. I would prevent the massacre from ever happening. But I can't. None of us can change the past. We can only shape the future, and the future we shaped is one where genocide has consequences, where the strong are held accountable, where victims don't have to accept injustice quietly. I can live with that future even if the cost was terrible. She walked away, leaving the reporter standing,